Hello and welcome to the webinar when you have to modernize your backup solution because of ransomware. This special webinar event is brought to you in partnership with Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. Thanks so much for joining us. Ransomware is a hot topic and it's affecting companies of all shapes and all sizes. No one is immune from ransomware. And so many companies out there are looking to modernize their data protection and disaster recovery solution simply because of this extremely high threat of ransomware. So that's why today's event is so timely and so important for everyone out there in the audience as IT professionals. Now, before we get started with today's expert presentations, there's just a few things that you should know about the event. My name is David Davis, and I'll be serving as the moderator. We're all former IT professionals here at Actual Tech Media, and we want these events to be educational. We want to help you to solve your challenges, especially around ransomware and data protection. So we encourage you to use the questions box there in your audience console. We also have our best question prize, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. I encourage you to check out the handouts tab as well for additional information and resources on today's topic. At the end of the webinar, I'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card door prize. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms can be found there in the handouts tab. And then, as I mentioned, we have our best question prize as well for an additional $50 Amazon gift card. Prize winners will be selected and contacted via email after the event. You must, of course, still meet the Actual Tech Media prize policy. And with that, I'm excited now to introduce you to our expert presenters. Welcome, Christina Evrayanova, Principal Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik, and Jeff Inouye, Technical Marketing Architect, also at Rubrik. Christina and Jeff, it's great to have you back on. I'll first hand it off to you, Christina. Take it away.
Thank you, Dave. Today we will talk about ransomware. This is something none of us wants to deal with. We will then introduce Rubrik and the Zero Trust data management, and we will wrap it up with a cool demo of how Rubrik can help you in the fight with cyber criminals. While ransomware is nothing new, a thriving economy has emerged. According to cybersecurity ventures, it's estimated that the global cost of ransomware will reach 20 billion by the end of this year. This is an increase from their estimated damages of 11.5 billion in 2019 and 8 billion in 2018. Moreover, the average ransom payment amount has increased by 104% in Q4 to 2019. So we are witnessing a thriving economy, a very lucrative business. The ransomware has morphed. The threat of ransomware is morphing. Rather than just looking to lock down the system, ransomware hackers are going straight for the backup data. They're encrypting it or deleting it completely, because this way they can ask for a much bigger ransom and then they have more leverage. The fact is that backups can be accessed, modified, and deleted from the network, and anything using standard storage protocols is vulnerable. Therefore, so many backup solutions have no air gap and no native immutability, just having it right there in the open for the hackers. So when the inevitable happens, some organizations opt to pay the ransom. And here is why. As it turns out, backups are no longer the last line of defense. The backups themselves, unfortunately, have been compromised. Secondly, it is very difficult to assess the blast radius, and companies just choose to pay because they do not know which of their systems have been compromised. Moreover, they don't know whether ransomware attack has access sensitive data like PII data or regulated data. And lastly, the recovery is often so slow that they just decide to pay the ransom. Even more so when SecOps teams suddenly begin talking to IT op teams and asking questions. Do you have the last known clean share? What point should we recover from? And IT operation is often disconnected from the playbook that security operations is going through at the moment. Our approach here at Rubrik is what we call Zero Trust data management. The Rubrik platform is architected to deliver security and resilience at the point of data so that you can rely on your protected data to initiate a recovery process. This starts with Rubrik unique native immutability and logical air gap. This means your data cannot be accessed or encrypted by ransomware. Then you have fully scoped anomaly detection, allowing you to intelligently assess the blast radius on ransomware and determine which data was affected and which was not. Along with the intelligence comes sensitive data assessment, where our Sonar application can analyze whether sensitive data was impacted and whether certain users have been interacting with this data. And finally, we accelerate your journey back to clean state with super easy expert-guided recovery. Rubrik delivers an automated recovery playbooks to your application back up and running using that nearest clean state, giving you affected workloads, sequencing order, and your choice of recovery types. But I think I went a little bit ahead of myself. Let me now tell you a little bit more about Rubrik. So Rubrik was really the pioneer here of the middle piece, the cloud data management piece, moving away from the legacy data protection world. We decided to have a policy-driven approach, a set of SLA that we can apply across all of your workloads, be it in any cloud or on premises. And on top of that, we took that restoration window down from weeks and days to minutes. So we give you super fast recovery and all controllable for on-premises to the cloud through a single pane of glass. So we are the pioneers of this next generation cloud data management. But when we talk about cyber resilience, it is important to tell you about our zero trust data management approach. This is the idea of providing security from the point of data, leveraging zero trust backups that will allow you to recover in the face of operational threats. So Rubrik adheres to the model defined by the National Institute of Standards, NIST, which is defined by the NIST SP 800-207 Zero Trust Architecture Specification. As NIST puts it, zero trust comprises an evolving set of cybersecurity paradigms that move defenses from static, network-based premises to focus on users, assets, and resources. A zero trust architecture assumes all user devices and applications are untrustworthy and can't be compromised. In other words, trust nothing, always verify. Only multi-factor authenticated users can get access to data, permissions limited, and specifically their ability to maliciously impact data is removed. So at the core of the Rubrik Zero Trust is the Rubrik Data Guardian, which supports a purpose-built file system that never exposes backup data via open network protocols. This creates a logical air gap that blocks data from being discoverable or accessible over the network. And as we said a little while ago, it is an immutable platform. Once data is written to the Rubrik system, it cannot be modified, deleted, or encrypted by an attack, ensuring that a clean copy of data is always available for recovery. And again, the multiple expert-guided recovery options, including live mount, mass recovery, and uploads, orchestrated recovery, are building so ITs can very quickly recover the files and workloads impacted by an attack. And then there are the other foundational pieces of the Rubrik Zero Trust data management. You get to reduce the risk of intrusion. All system interfaces are secure, role-based, least privilege, and protected by two-factor authentication. Trust nobody and no system. Secure the data. Data is always encrypted, in flight and at rest, and backup data is stored in a purpose-built append-only file system. Backed up data is always logically air-gapped, so it's offline and not accessible through standard network protocols. Detect and alert anomalous behavior. Detect an attack. Alert the SecOps team, and pinpoint to a clean recovery point. And lastly, enforce compliance. Automatically protect new workloads, lock retention, and find certain exposed sensitive data that may be exfiltrated. But I think I have talked enough. I think it's time for Jeff to do the cool demo. And Jeff will show you several pieces of the Zero Trust architecture today. The multi-factor authentication, the asset discovery and protection, and sensitive data discovery. Over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Christina. Hey everyone, this is Jeff Inouye with Rubrik Tech Marketing. And today I'm going to demo a few of the key areas of Rubrik Zero Trust data management. In the demo, I'll show you how Rubrik customers are able to prepare for the inevitable attack. As we all know, backups are the last line of defense against the internal and external threats of ransomware. To start, I will demo our multi-factor authentication that uses a time-based one-time password, also known as TOTP. From there, we will build out an SLA policy and see how it applies to workloads. After that, we'll hop over to the Rubrik Polaris interface. I'll give you an overview of the data classification features of Polaris Sonar and show you how simple it is to apply the solution. So let's jump into the CDM interface and log into the system. As you will notice, the system will prompt for a TOTP code that I enter from my Authenticator app. Once entered, I'm allowed access to the system. This simple feature mitigates the threats to backups when an account password becomes compromised. It protects both the graphical interface as well as the admin CLI. From the CDM dashboard, I'm presented with administrative information about the cluster. This includes running tasks, cluster status, and other relevant details. Remember, this is a masterless scale-out cluster, so any service, such as this administrative GUI, is available from any one of the cluster nodes. The heart of CDM is the SLA domain policy. It is a declarative method of managing your backups. You first define the desired RPO, replication, and archive of data, and the system handles the rest. So the job creation, scheduling, and workload balancing are all automated within the system. Let's take a look at building a typical policy. On the left-hand side, we will select SLA domains and then local domains. Then we click the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. We give the SLA a name, and then we set the frequency and retention of snapshots based upon a given RPO. As an example, I'll draft a common policy used by customers. We'll have daily backups that are kept for 32 days, we'll have monthly backups that are kept for 12 months, and then we'll have annual backups retained for 7 years. This could be for something like compliance or regulatory rules around data storage. Below, we have the option to set a window for the initial and recurring backups. For archival, we simply click the slider button to enable, and we select the archive location, in this case AWS, and then from here, we can enable archive tiering of backup data to cheaper storage classes. If there's another CDN cluster in the topology, we can enable replication between clusters. The slider bar configures the number of snapshots stored on the remote cluster. These can be used for remote recoveries or disaster recovery of a data center site. At the summary page, we can view the backup frequency and retention, archiving, and replication. From here, we can apply this policy to workloads, and the system will delegate the required jobs. As an example, let's take a look at how we apply an SLA policy to an entire vCenter instance. From the left-hand menu, we will select Virtual Machines and then vSphere VMs. From the top, we will select Clusters and Hosts, and then put a check mark next to the vSphere instance. We click the Manage Protection button and then select the desired SLA policy to apply. This policy inherits throughout the entire vSphere environment, so any existing or newly created virtual machine is protected by the policy and creates a baseline for data protection. Now that we have seen how to apply an SLA policy, let's jump over to the Polaris Global Dashboard. Now that we are in the Polaris Global Dashboard, we can view cloud, SaaS, and data center instances. This global view provides key information to an administrator on a daily basis. It includes a summary of anomaly detection, sensitive data scanning, and orchestrated recoveries. For today, let's jump into the Sonar dashboard so I can show you how easy it is to identify sensitive data. Sonar uses the concept of a policy and an analyzer. An analyzer is essentially what content you are searching for, and a policy is a grouping of one or more analyzers. As an example, let's see how we can apply a policy to a given workload. From the top of the Sonar dashboard, we click on Management. We then click on the Configure Policies button and select the desired policy. For instance, if we wanted to perform content scanning for US and UK PII, we can select both policies in the wizard. We can then select which virtual machines, NAS, or file backups to apply the policy. Once confirmed, the Sonar product will apply a data scanning operation after each backup that completes in CDM. Let's take a look at some previous scanning results, and I'll show you how the insights are presented in the interface. From the Sonar dashboard, let's click on My Virtual Machine, which is on the top risk category. From here, we can either browse the file system in an Explorer-like view, or we can click on the Files tab to see all sensitive data hits. When we select a file, we can view the types of hits that are found. We can also look at details, as well as permissions granted. This information can be downloaded and used in audits or remediation of the permissions if needed. Speaking of permissions, if we use the drop-down menus, we can drill down to identify sensitive data hits with open permissions. For example, you can see that this file has USPII and has permissions applied that leave it open for anyone to access and needs to be remediated. With ransomware, IT organizations need to quickly scale their data classification. Since all data is at risk, they must understand where sensitive data lives to remediate and maintain compliance. With CDM and Sonar, customers can prepare for a ransomware attack. They can ensure secured backups through CDM and take control of their sensitive data. Thank you for taking time to watch the demo. Christina, back to you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. Before we open the floor for Q&A, I just quickly want to we quickly want to tell you what our customers are saying. If we are to do a word cloud from our customers' testimonials, you will see phrases like 88% reduction in backup management time, eliminated 100+ hours of application downtime each year, 3 million cost savings, 32 days of additional productivity, 90% faster recovery, lower TCO, so on and so on. And this is something that is expected outcome from a modern cloud data management solution like Rubrik. But along those lines, you would also see testimonials such ransomware cannot compromise our backups, 100% ransomware recovery, reduced time to resolution, and most importantly, we didn't pay the ransom. We invite you to give Rubrik a try, so you can also say we didn't have to pay the ransom. Thank you, and let's hear your questions.
Excellent presentation, Jeff and Christina. I really appreciate that. We do have some questions for you from the audience. I want to encourage everyone out there to get your questions in now. If something's on your mind, now's the time to get it in. Use the questions pane there in your audience console. Of course, don't forget about our best question prize we're running as well. Jeff and Christina, you ready for some Q&A?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Let's see. First question. Actually, William's got quite a few questions here on the list. So I guess we'll start with those. William wants to know, how can I write protect my backups? I'll just kind of go down the list one at a time. Who wants to take that one?
I could take that one. Yeah, so in terms of write protection of backups, I think taking a step back to understand how Rubrik writes to its file system, Atlas. So it is append only. So once it's written to the system, essentially it can't be modified. So normally when people look at write protection, they look at a file that's been written to a system, and then after that, it's a modification of that file. Our file system essentially will take a file as it's written, and then if there's any changes to it or any deltas, that's actually a new file. So essentially, there's no overwrites allowed within the system itself.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. I can see where that would be really critical to ensure that ransomware doesn't infect the backup repository. A follow-up question here from William, who's asking, is there a way to get notified when any backup files are getting encrypted, not planned by admins? Uh, is that possible?
Yeah, so not specifically the backup files themselves, but we do have a product that we have. It does anomaly detection. It's called Radar. And what it does is every time a backup is taken, similar to the demo where we looked at Sonar, it will look at the metadata of those files. And it does a process of machine learning that we've have a learn process for. So we can feed essentially profiles for attributes of anomaly, or excuse me, anomaly behavior. And then once we look at that metadata after a backup is taken, we can notify if there's been something that's obviously been encrypted or something that has been changed very suddenly or rapidly in terms of what they call entropy.
Got it. Okay. And then they're also asking, is there a way to apply any rules to stop encryption?
No, I mean, in terms of we're essentially not in line with that. I mean, we don't do the I guess would be considered more of an endpoint protection to basically insert ourselves to prevent encryption from happening. We're essentially the recovery and notification of possibility of encryption events.
Got it. Okay. And then what about, is there any way to integrate backup logs or send backup logging to like a SIEM system of some kind of security event system?
Hmm. Yeah, so any of our logs can be sent to a SIM, and we've done that with vendors such as Palo Alto.
Great. Great. Let's see here. Ned's asking, how does Rubrik protect or restore backup data that was encrypted or deleted during a ransomware attack?
Yeah, so yeah, I did see that question, and I was thinking that more in lines of, if we were to back up something that had been encrypted, our goal is to find the best, previous point in time prior to any sort of infection that we can recover from. That is our sole purpose, is to secure the backups and then provide a path of recovery. In terms of ingesting something that has been encrypted, there's really nothing for us to do with that. But really, the focal point and really the more difficult part is identifying which point in time we can recover from. That's really the biggest hurdle that people encounter when they're facing ransomware. So that's where is from from other presentations that we've had, we use the anomaly detection from Radar to work into our orchestrated disaster recovery solution app flows. So that way we can do um, groups of applications, groups of systems that comprise an application. And then we can select different points in time prior to any sort of encryption or whatever security teams deem as a clean backup. And then we can perform an automated and orchestrated recovery.
Absolutely, yeah, and a rapid recovery as well. Get that data back as quickly as possible. That's always what I've heard about the Rubrik solution is that ability to do that rapid restore. Another question here, Bradford is asking, how does Rubrik offer a procedure, process, or method of verifying backup and recovery potential to be utilized in the event that ransomware strikes? Did we just cover that, or do you want to elaborate any more on that?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think people that, or I guess IT administrators, I was one myself. Something that you don't really experience if you haven't gone through one of these security incidents is that you're typically going to be recovering to some sort of sandbox to hand off to the security team, to where they have to basically qualify that restoration as clean and ready to be introduced back into production. So in terms of that, what Rubrik can provide is one, something like app flows for a application recovery and all the systems that it requires, or we can do a live mount of a system uh, to be able to provide that to a sandbox area. so they can do their scanning, and then we can introduce that back to production. So there's different methods of recovery because there's really no one size fits all for security incidents. It has to be very granular, so it could be down to like a file or folder, or it could be a single machine, or it could be multiple machines. Something we would cover with app flows.
Got it. Yeah, and I know we did an entire other event on Rubrik app flows, which was a really cool solution. And for anyone out there who hasn't, learned about what app flows does and how it can help you, I encourage you to check that out. Um, Next question, they want to know how CPU or resource intensive, are Rubrik's solutions like Sonar, Polaris, and Radar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was one of the, when this was introduced to us internally a couple of years back, that was one of the primary concerns off the top of our heads. But what we found is that, most CPU utilization, which it is a CPU resource intensive process, is that we go through these peaks and valleys. And we're able to, within our system, within this clustered system, right, prioritize those scanning jobs to really smooth out any sort of spikes that we see. So we have customers now that are running Sonar, across all their data sets and have no impact to production backup processes. So it's been very successful just because we're controlling all the processes behind the scene. We can really make good utilization of the cluster itself.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good to know over time that this hasn't been a resource really intensive at all. I like that. Justin's asking, do you allow any sort of third-party plugins like AV products or anything? Is there any sort of integration with other scanning like security tools?
No, I mean, I think that was considered. I'm totally speculating here in terms of the founding development. But introducing those types of products within the system, really kind of goes against our our security methodology. We can provide things like live mount and the API availability with our SDKs to be able to do workflows to be able to present that to another third-party solution. But we don't necessarily want to integrate that within our system because it is closed.
Got it. Okay. I like this question from James, who's asking if you had to sum up one characteristic. I don't know if you can just do one, but what makes Rubrik the best choice above its competitors?
Yeah, I mean, the I guess the marketing answer is security. I mean, that is something that is inherent to the system. But for really the day-to-day administrator, it's going to be the ease of use, because backups are something that we have to assume, and the company and your managers are going to presume that this is something that is functionally working. So I think that my favorite attribute personally is the ease of use and the day-to-day deployment that we provide.
I have also was contemplating how to answer that question. And kind of same as, Jeff, I was thinking cyber resilience, right? Because this is top of mind for everybody. But then you cannot overlook the simplicity of managing the SLAs and then the restore and everything else that comes up with it. So I'm going to throw a marketing term out here, and I'm just going to say it's a revolutionary product. So there you have it. That's the one word, revolutionary.
I like that. Revolutionary, and Jeff said ease of use, both very important when it comes to IT. We need more revolutionary and easy to use solutions, especially in the world of data protection. So that's great to hear. Let's see. Paul's asking from the perspective of ransomware, which often appears to target bigger organizations. Should SMBs consider backup modernization as much as larger organizations? And if so, could it be done affordably?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would actually think the same thing, but I can tell you from the other side, there are a lot of attacks on SMB and mid-market customers. You just don't hear about them because they're not, sensationalized within media. Um, but I can think of within my own territory and past relationships that I've had with smaller customers, they are definitely a target for ransomware. So, Christina, do you want to talk about the complete solution?
Our most basic,
Yeah,
foundational product.
yeah. So we do have a product that it falls in line with our smaller customers. Um, it is a 6404 or a 6408 appliance, I believe. Um, and what that provides is essentially a end-to-end solution for that cluster deployment. There is it's on the customer to be able to do the deployment, which is very simple to do, um, and support can help guidance in that. But really, what it does is just eases the transaction, lowers the total overall cost, and it's complete within that bundle. So there are offerings for the smaller, medium size customers that they've certainly taken advantage of.
That's good to
Yeah,
hear.
and
I
actually,
like
what I
to
was
hear.
going.
Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. What I was going to add to it is actually, if you go to our website, there are many customer stories, and a lot of them are SMB type of a customer stories, right? And aside, that there is something that's beyond affordable, what they get in return in terms of the time savings is so much larger and so much more valid than a larger organization when you have a much bigger staff. So actually for SMBs, it is very, very as important to think about something more modern, something, that provides the needed savings and, of course, the functionality that is above critical these days. Um, and it shouldn't be even a concern, right? As much as a large enterprise needs to modernize, a small SMB, needs to be as agile and as flexible and protected.
Absolutely. You make a great point that a solution that's easier to manage could, maybe even help smaller organizations even more because they don't have the staff to manage a data protection
Mhm.
and DR solution maybe on a daily basis. So, and it's great to
Yeah.
hear that Rubrik has solutions designed just for smaller organizations. Um, I like this question. They're asking, how much time does it take to learn and be proficient at supporting and maintaining Rubrik?
I'll be really honest and say it's going to probably take about a day. Um, in terms of if it's your our core systems that we protect, like VMware, SQL, Oracle, you're looking at a day to understand the foundational concepts, and really, it's just what we showed in the demo, understanding how to translate, what the business is telling you in terms of your RPO and what your archival policies need to be. We take that SLA policy, we can apply that to your virtual workloads or your databases, for example. And then after that, it's essentially point and click and go.
I like that. A day. That's great, especially like you said for these smaller organizations as well. So, um, Ken is asking about automated backup validation and testing. I know you mentioned app flows. Does app flows do that, or is that part of just Rubrik in itself?
Hmm. Yeah, so AppFlows does provide the ability to do a test workflow to where you would be able to present, that the recovery point to a sandboxed area. The other is if you wanted to do something that was, you know, I guess scripted, something like that. You can certainly perform that. Most of my customers will do live mount operations to be able to check backups, and then there's also other methods that you can get that accomplished.
Got it. Okay. Very
But
nice.
now that yeah, so now that I'm thinking about it, really AppFlows is really um, the most efficient way to do that, because really when you're doing application recovery testing, you have to have all those dependencies in place. That's something we can put together within a policy to be able to instantiate. Because it's not going to be just one system, more than likely, unless you're lucky.
Right, right. There's a question here around the licensing model for Rubrik's accelerated ransomware recovery solution. Is this packaged as a single product, or are these solutions kind of add-ons, different packages you add on to the core Rubrik solution? How does that work?
I can take that, Christina, or do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so in terms of the modules within Polaris, so we're talking specifically about Radar. That can be handled on a subscription basis just for that one piece. But really what everyone is adopting is our it's a bundled solution with all those pieces together, right? So if we look at sonar, radar, and potentially outflows, when we bundle those together, you really get the solution that we're architected for. That's not to say that people don't go with individual solutions or modules, which are available on a subscription basis. But that is how it's modeled, right? So individual subscriptions or bundled as a complete package.
Very nice. And then Ned is asking, how is it that Rubrik maintains the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant? What really, in your opinion, keeps that up there so high?
I think it's obvious, right? I mean, you saw from the demo and everything we've covered, the innovation that we keep on driving, all our products and the capabilities and the guarantee that your data is secure and protected, right? But we are always looking forward, always innovating, and I think more and more needed features will be introduced on the market.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I'll add to that from the engineer, like administrator hat. Quality of code is really, really important to us. There's just that just can't be stated enough, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure like this. It has to be vetted out properly, and that starts with our code quality. So when something is released, it's every person in the company trying to ensure that this is a quality product and ready to go for our customers.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up. We've covered pretty much all the questions that are out here, and I'm afraid we're running out of time. We wanted to try to keep this short. So, Jeff, Christina, it's been great having you on. Thank you for answering so many questions, and thanks for the great demo.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Of course. Yeah, thanks to everyone out there in the audience as well for joining us today. A really great webinar here, and I hope that you learned a lot about how to modernize your backup solution to prepare for the impending, ransomware attacks that we're all under. I want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card before we go. This is going out to Joey DiChausio from Massachusetts. Congratulations, Joey DiChausio from Massachusetts. And we'll also be reaching out to our Best Question Prize winner as well via email after the event. Of course, thank you to everyone at Rubrik for joining us on the event today. Don't forget about the handouts tab. It's there that you'll find a link to Rubrik's Accelerate Ransomware Recovery landing page. There are videos there. There are case studies. There's a lot of different resources. So make sure that you check that out. And of course, visit Rubrik.com. Right there, you can get started on their homepage. There's a big button, and you can contact them and get your own personal demo of Rubrik and see how it can help you to modernize your data protection and disaster recovery stance. Thank you again to everyone who joined us on the event. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.